Good morning, everybody. Bore da pawb. Welcome to our session this morning around navigating the storm, trauma and empowerment. My name is Dr. Caroline Hughes, and I'm Associate Dean at the Wrexham Glyndŵr University in the Faculty in Social and Life Sciences. I'm delighted to be spending some time with you this morning talking about our work. Particularly delighted, given that Wales are playing this morning, Wales-Iran, and delighted that you've given up your time to share with us this morning. So my colleague Tegan will introduce herself shortly, but just to briefly put some context into this work before we start. So at Wrexham Glyndŵr University, we were asked 2 years ago to work in partnership with the ACE Hub, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Hub, Welsh Government, to become the first trauma-informed university in the UK. And since then, we've been working really closely in partnership with the ACE Hub to achieve that aim. Now, this is basically recognising that many people will have experienced adverse childhood experiences in their lives and trauma within their lives. And it's about creating that environment that enables all staff and students to thrive and to feel supported and to build on relationships in order that people can grow. So part of that work, we've been working really closely to develop a trauma-informed university, but it's also about how do we make our communities trauma-informed as well. And we have a range of partnerships in place there. And this very much is part of that work as well, in terms of how do we share those messages? How do we create that trauma-informed environment across the board, really? Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tegan, who's going to talk more about the concept that she developed, navigating this storm.
Hi everyone, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Caroline, for the introduction. My name is Tegan, and I'm a lecturer at Glyndŵr University, and I lecture across 3 programmes, policing, criminology and therapeutic childcare. And the reason that I became involved in the Trauma and ACE project is because I've just finished my PhD, which focused on trauma-informed practice within youth justice, within the Youth Justice Service in North Wales. And so part of, my research was looking at trauma and trauma experienced by children involved in the justice system, and also how the system comes to work with those children to ensure that they are supported. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in just a little while, and a bit more about some of the concepts behind navigating the storm and how the work came into fruition. But first, I just wanted to start by looking at a definition of trauma. The word trauma has Greek origins, and it means wound. And it refers to both the exposure to a traumatic experience or experiences, and also refers to the effects of that exposure. You might be surprised, maybe not surprised, to know that there's no universal definition of trauma. Lots of different various definitions exist to describe what trauma means. So it is quite subjective, and perhaps that is why there is no set definition. There's also no universal definition for trauma-informed practice either, which again means that organisations and practitioners tend to define it in their own way. I've chosen to share this definition with you today, which is the SAMHSA's definition. SAMHSA do lots of work around trauma and trauma-informed practice. They have a trauma-informed care guide, which sets out the definition of trauma, alongside different models and concepts that they've amalgamated to make various principles of trauma-informed practice. So it's really helpful to look to their work and have a look at how they define trauma. So SAMHSA's definition is an event, series of events, a set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening, and that has lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. I've chosen this to use this definition today because it encompasses such a broad range of events and experiences, and it's less narrow, I would say, in comparison to other definitions of trauma. So it's quite helpful, really, because, as I said, trauma is so subjective, and what some people might describe as traumatic for them, somebody else may disagree and may not feel it is traumatic, but actually feel that something they have experienced is traumatic. So it really does capture that individual and subjective nature of trauma. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the journey of navigating the storm and how it came about. So as I said, I started my PhD in 2018, and I was interested in exploring the trauma-informed culture emerging within North Wales Youth Justice Service. As part of the, when I signed up for the PhD, I was told that I would have to present at conferences each year just to kind of grow my confidence around the area and to start sharing my work with other people. So that's exactly what I started to do. You can see the picture on the screen. I'm not going to win any photography awards, that's for sure, but I entered a visualising research competition to try and capture my research through the use of imagery. And I titled the picture "The Serene Storm Within." I did this in 2019, and I used a water analogy to explain how we all experience life so differently. Just as there are many different bodies of water, there are many different experiences that we can have in our life. So that was where the Serene Storm Within came from. And the same year, I presented at the ACE Hub conference. And that was the first time that I spoke about navigating the storm. It was kind of very early on in its stages at that point, and I used again the analogy of water to talk about how we experience life so differently. And for some people, we could look out at the ocean, for example, and we'd all feel differently about the ocean. Some of us would be really excited and think, I want to get out there right now and experience all of that. And it looks exciting, it looks inviting and welcoming. Whereas some of us would look out at the ocean and think, actually, that looks really scary. It looks really difficult to navigate. We don't know what's hidden beneath the depth. So we'll all feel slightly different about it depending on our past experiences. So yeah, I presented some of that at the ACE Hub conference. That was my first conference I presented at for my PhD research, and I had a great time. And then things changed in 2020, of course, with the pandemic. Quite a lot of conferences moved online. And so there was an online conference at Glyndŵr. We have an open house for research series that I think it's monthly or every couple of months that runs. And PhD students are encouraged to present at the Open House for Research conference, and you get 6 minutes to present. So you have 6 minutes to talk about your research and your idea. And I remember thinking at the time, how can I fit what I do into 6 minutes? Because it's quite complex, and I wanted to ensure that it was delivered sensitively as well, just as it deserved, because it is such a sensitive topic area. So that was really where Navigating the Storm was born, I would say. Although the ideas were sparked with the 2019 conference, it was at Open House that I really went with a lot of the metaphors and went into a lot more detail with the metaphors that I used. And I'm going to tell you all about those metaphors in just a second before we watch the animation. And then what happened at the Open House was wonderful, because Professor Mandy Robbins was there, and she emailed me afterwards and said, I think that this would make a brilliant animation. And that was where the animation came from. So I'll always be grateful to Mandy for that opportunity and for the opportunity to present at Open House, because it really has been life-changing and led to the launch of Navigating the Storm. I'm going to pass back over to Caroline now, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about the partnership with the ACE Hub and some of the processes around the animation as well.
Thanks, Tegan. So a key kind of challenge really in relation to trauma, which Tegan's already talked about, is how do we make this accessible? How do we help people to understand what it is that we're talking about when we're talking about trauma, and how do we help people to understand what it means to have a trauma-informed approach? And a key part of our work with the partnership has been hearts and minds. So in our work, we've not kind of launched into lots of training to begin with. We are now looking at training for staff, but it's about kind of gently sharing the messages and taking people with us on that journey. And the ASHEB, were quite excited when they heard about the concept that Tegan had developed and about this idea of an animation, and fully supported us in relation to this work. So a key principle is partnership, and it's about relationships, and it's about working with students as partners. So we really wanted to co-produce. We're co-producing all the way along with our work. We have students working closely with us in our trauma-informed university pilot work. So it was really important that we worked in partnership with students in developing this animation. So what we did is we put out a competition. We were able to secure some funding as a prize to kind of incentivize engagement for that competition. And we held a transparent process where students developed a storyboard, and they presented to us and to Joe Hopkins from the ASHEB in relation to their ideas for the animation. And we were really delighted to work with students in our illustration and animation teams in the art and design area of the university, who developed this animation. And we worked really closely with them, discussing ideas, talking about how we were going to develop this. And you'll see the students credited there at the end of the animation as well, in relation to who we worked with. And yeah, it's just been really exciting, and that co-production is really important. We also commissioned the music that you'll hear when you hear the animation as well, so it was very much co-produced. We also have a Welsh version as well, which is narrated by one of our colleagues, Alan Mai Nevydd. And then we were delighted to launch Navigating the Storm in January 2022. And we actually had the Deputy Minister for Mental Health and Wellbeing, Lynn Neagle, who chaired the launch for us, and we were absolutely thrilled and honoured to have that support. And the Minister has continued to provide support and promote this animation. We also had the Future Generations Commissioner there. We had representatives from UNICEF, and it was really broadly and widely attended, including colleagues from Adult Learning Wales as well. So yeah, I'll hand over now to Tegan to talk a little bit more about those themes and concepts.
Thank you, Caroline. So yeah, I'm going to go straight into talking to you about some of the themes and metaphors that you'll see in the animation. And I just wanted to say that we are touching on sensitive areas as well. So please do look after yourselves, and we are around at the end if you do need to talk about anything, because there is the animation has extended beyond what you'll see on the animation to incorporate other metaphors and themes, which I'm going to tell you about. But of course it does, there are some quite sensitive areas. So I wanted to start by diving into themes. You'll see that you'll come to understand that the animation is nautical themed. So everything that you'll see is to do with water and boats, anything nautical really. And you can use a piece of paper if you'd like to draw your own water and draw your own boat, or you can use your imagination. Whatever you would like to do is absolutely fine. You can do anything that you want for this activity before we watch the animation. So what I want you to do is just imagine or draw that life is represented by a body of water, and it doesn't matter what that is, but it needs to represent how you feel about life in this moment. So you can begin to imagine what that would look like. As individuals flow through life, they might experience periods of upheaval, stress, and adversity. Similarly, they may experience periods of peace, happiness, and satisfaction. The life trajectory, as we all know, is not linear, but instead it's in constant change and in motion. There might be stages of serenity and stillness, but each period is never certain or permanent. So in this respect, life is like different bodies of water. A calm and still pond for when life is tranquil, for when life feels peaceful, and maybe a raging, stormy ocean for when life feels difficult and challenging. Maybe your life at the moment is a fast-flowing river which feels steady, with acknowledgement that circumstances could change at a river bend. A sea full of assorted waves when situations in life are fluctuating. Typically, we'll all experience each of the water bodies, and it may alternate often. One moment could throw us off course into a completely different body of water, depending on how life feels for us at that particular time. Not only do the bodies of water change all the time for us, they also look and feel different for each of us too. So for some, an angry ocean represents severe threat and anxiety about the future, whereas for others, it may still bring hardship, but they feel equipped to deal with the challenges, and they can see clear skies ahead, and life still excites them. Think about the people in your life, whether you know them personally or professionally, and consider what water they might find themselves in right now. It's not just their water conditions which might be treacherous, but also what lies in the water depths. For example, some individuals have been in predatory waters, infested by tigerfish for prolonged periods of time. If these individuals suddenly find themselves surrounded by angelfish instead, they would still be on the lookout for tigerfish. And as we know, tigerfish are predatory and dangerous to human beings. So if an individual saw an angelfish instead swim by, they would probably still be quite mistrustful of the angelfish because they look so similar. They may also be mistrustful of the water that they find themselves in and be on the lookout for any sign of a storm that might come their way. This might cause an adverse reaction to the angelfish and even to the water around them, which is understandable, but all we would see from the outside is a reaction to what we perceive as a minor situation, a symptom of the trauma that they have faced. So, for example, they might be in a pond, a calm, tranquil pond with a lovely angelfish swimming next to them. They might react adversely to that. And from the outside, we may think, why are they acting that way? Why are they reacting in that way to this, calm situation that they're in with this lovely angelfish swimming by? But for them, the angelfish might represent a tigerfish, and just a gentle ripple of the water might indicate a storm for them. And so their reaction is perfectly normal to what they have been through. The next theme I wanted to talk about is the vehicle that we navigate life through. We can recognise that others do not just potentially see the world differently to us, but they experience it differently too. The reason for this is because all of our navigation vehicles are unique to us, and they are based on experiences, relationships, socioeconomic status, and self-identity. Your navigation vehicle is what I would like you to draw or imagine next. The vehicle that we use to navigate life changes as we grow and our circumstances change, although perhaps not that often. In addition, certain aspects of our vehicles may always remain with us despite changes because we build them up from what we already have. Some of us may start our life on a luxurious cruise liner, others may start with a small sailboat, or simply a plank of wood representing structural inequalities. Depending on circumstances, some individuals may have full steering power of their vehicle, whereas others may just have one oar, or perhaps they have nothing at all, which makes it really difficult to navigate life. And instead, they feel like they are pushed in various directions and pushed to make various decisions as well. A boat may look worn on the outside, may have a few leaks or a broken sail, but perhaps the individual is content and they can problem solve and plan for the future flexibly. They feel that although their boat may have these leaks, although the boat may have a broken sail, they feel like they're able to navigate any storm that comes their way. The opposite may also apply. So some boats might look sturdy and safe on the outside, but there are lots of issues on board or below deck that cannot be seen, and the individual worries about a storm that may come their way. They may think, well, my boat looks safe and sturdy, but actually it's not. After a difficult period, it's helpful to seek safety and head towards the dock, and this is our chance to rest, recover, repair any damage if necessary, and to seek connection with those important to us if they can meet us there. This is all around our attachments. So if others can help us prepare to dock our vehicles, then they can also ensure that we take enough time to rest, and this can empower us to head out onto the water again. However, some of us don't have anyone to help us dock. Some of us don't have connections and attachments, so that we're unable then to take time out safely to reach a state of equilibrium, and instead we're forced to remain in the water and sometimes in the chaos. This might mean that we struggle to feel safe, secure and connected when we really want some help, when we really want some support from other people. You'll also see when you watch the animation that we all have items which are on our boats. 3 items we have, so I'm going to talk to you about all of those items now. The first is distress flares. Some of us can use these distress flares when needed, and we can recognise danger and know when to ask for help. We can also tolerate and learn to manage our feelings and learn from them so that we can reflect back in the future. Alternatively, distress flares may be misused because we may perceive threat in every situation, and so flares are constantly being set off, making it difficult for those of us to be present because we are always on high alert. Others may not know how to use their distress flares at all because they may not recognise when they are under threat, leaving them unable to signal for help in the same way as other people might. This may lead to alternative means being used to connect with others, to get the help needed and to self-soothe. Again, if you think about the other people around you, whether that's personally or professionally, maybe think about how they use their distress flares, and we can start to understand when we work through a trauma-informed lens why people might not always use their distress flares appropriately in our eyes. However, remember that to them it would be completely appropriate if they use the distress flare all the time, or if they never use their distress flare. That is appropriate to them. Our boats also come equipped with an anchor of resilience, which gives us control when things get tough, helps us to stay on course and learn from adverse experiences. In order to use the anchor of resilience, an individual must gain strength to lift their own anchor and be taught how and when to use it. The resilience anchor becomes easier to use during times of hardship only when secure connections, so whether that's individual connections, connections through education, through the community, only when those secure connections offer support and when individuals reflect and learn on their previous reactions. Again, like with everything else, the anchor of resilience will look and feel different based on a number of components. And it's not always possible or appropriate to rely on the anchor of resilience because some situations require the need to bear hardship instead, particularly where a traumatic experience is ongoing. What's really important to remember is that individuals should not be held responsible if they lack resilience or cannot lift their anchor of resilience, because it's dependent on many different variables, including context and past experiences, which fall outside of their command. A failure to thrive or bounce back is not the fault of an individual, but rather inequitable systems and societal structures and inequality. The final piece of equipment that we all have on our boats is a telescope equipped with a trauma-informed lens, so that we're able to look closely at an individual, their boat, the water surrounding them, and begin to understand what they have experienced or may be experiencing on board. We should aim to use the trauma-informed lens at every opportunity, because a disclosure may never be made, but that does not mean that adversity leading to trauma has not been experienced. We do not need to know what has happened to someone, we just need to meet them on their journey with kindness, understanding and compassion. It should be understood that to be trauma-informed, you do not need to be a trauma-trained therapist. A therapist will have access not only to a trauma-informed lens telescope, but also to a trauma-specific kaleidoscope, whereby they'll be able to provide high-quality interventions with individuals who may require specialist support. The trauma-informed lens can help us make initial connections with individuals in a safe and trustworthy way. For example, we may touch the surface of the water, meeting that individual and creating a ripple effect. This is the beginning of making a connection, one which at first may be perceived as a threat, since a ripple can occur just before a storm, or if there's a predator lurking beneath. However, if the ripple is consistent and it allows for boundaries to be maintained and is aligned with a detailed explanation, then it may allow for the building of a trusted relationship. So I wanted to talk about the Sea of Grief, which is a extension of Navigating the Storm. It's not included in the animation, but it's an extended metaphor. Grief has always been around us, but it has increased during and following the pandemic. And as we know, grief can be very traumatic. The Sea of Grief is a place which many of us will visit. Grief is often described as coming in waves, and that is true of the sea. Some of the waves are big and strong, make us feel like we've lost control and that we can't see a way forward. Other waves are smaller but still noticeable, like when you pick up the phone wanting to tell that person something, only you no longer can, which will still knock us. We all have our own Sea of Grief, and it can be a lonely place. Islands are situated within this sea, and they represent those who we have lost. When we first lose somebody, we sail continuously around their island, and we can see their boat washed up on shore, but we know that it will never sail again. For some, we actively try to avoid the Sea of Grief and paddle furiously each day to avoid seeing the island. This is exhausting, but it's a survival strategy to help us avoid distress and difficult emotions. As time passes, we're able to navigate further away from the island, but we still keep it in our view for quite a while. As more time passes, we eventually move from the Sea of Grief, but we do return from time to time and visit the islands, visit the empty boats. Next to each boat is a box, and each box represents our relationship with that person, and all of the boxes contain memories. For some, the outside of the box would be akin to a treasure chest with beautiful carvings of your life together. For others, the box might be covered in dust and cobwebs, perhaps representing a relationship which was estranged. For some, the box might be covered in sharp shells which hurt us, representing those really difficult relationships. The memories will look and feel different to us all. Remember, each box on each island will be slightly different. Memories can be painful in the most beautiful of relationships and in the most difficult of relationships as well. For some, in order to visit the memories, they must sail the Sea of Grief again. For others, they are able to take some of the memories with them so that they do not always need to return to the Sea of Grief to think back on their time with that person. This does usually take quite a long time. If we look through our trauma-informed lens, we may notice that somebody is in the Sea of Grief, visiting one of the islands or actively trying to paddle away. Perhaps they're struggling against the waves or dealing with painful memories. We all deal with grief differently, and each new experience of grief will feel differently too, depending on many aspects. The Sea of Grief is full of emotion. All of the waves are filled with different emotions. Perhaps feeling nothing, perhaps disbelief, dismissing the event, sadness, guilt, regret, or anger. Loads of different various types of emotions. And people may respond based on that emotion that knocks them at the time. If we acknowledge and meet others in their emotions rather than pass judgment and work with them whilst they navigate the Sea of Grief, then they can begin to regain a sense of control and purpose. We can all use our trauma-informed telescope in our personal and professional lives. We may notice that some individuals may struggle to connect when we're using our trauma-informed lens, and these individuals may need further support. This might be in the form of grief therapy, which involves a therapist with access to their trauma-informed kaleidoscope, representing the different colours or periods of an individual's life. and mechanisms of working with an individual to help them navigate the difficult waters until they are ready to set sail again. Another metaphor beyond the animation is the lighthouse. A lighthouse is a beacon of hope and represents safety to guide our boats through difficult situations. It lights the way ahead and empowers us to continue with our journey, however that may look, whilst remaining a constant source of reassurance that we can move forward when there is opportunity given to us and where guidance is received if needed. In this way, organisations can be represented as lighthouses, their effectiveness applied by the lens that they measured by the lens that they apply. Organisations who understand and are responsive to trauma have worked to apply a lens which enables them to undertake various transformations needed at multiple levels, whilst constantly reflecting on their mission, values, and work to ensure that they are nurturing and sensitive. In this way, their lighthouse lens can be likened to a Fresnel lens, which comprises of tiers of prisms, which refract and then reflect the light as it passes, creating a brighter beam. The tiers of prisms represent the importance of multi-level change throughout the whole system, while the reflection of light symbolises the need for organisations to continually reflect, learn and grow. So I'm going to share with you the animation in just a second, and I really hope that it conveys the importance of connections and relationships in all of their forms. I also hope that it helps with the understanding of trauma and what it means to be trauma-informed, that you're understood, that you're not alone, however you feel or want to feel. You're going to be met there with kindness and receptiveness. The importance lies not in knowing exactly what an individual has experienced, but in understanding that there may be a history of trauma which may influence their life in a number of ways. It's acknowledging that there is strength in experience, and just because there may be a cracked or gnarled tile, it does not make their life mosaic any less interesting or admirable. So before I share the animation, I wanted to finish with this quote, which I'm sure you'll be familiar with, by Maya Angelou. And it really captures what it means to be trauma-informed. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that is so true. People really do remember how they are met and how others make them feel, how they may completely forget what has been said to them or what they've learned, but what they will remember is actually, how did this person make me feel in my heart? How did this person make me feel in my stomach? And it connects to the quote at the beginning by Dr. Karen Treisman, every interaction is an intervention. And again, that is incredibly true, because each time that we interact with somebody is incredibly important to their experiences. Even just a smile can make a huge difference in somebody's day. So I'm going to hopefully share the animation now. My slide will work, and you should be able to hear this as well.
We are all navigating life, just like boats navigate water. When our life feels calm and manageable, the water gently laps the side of our boat. When life feels tough, the water is a stormy ocean with terrifying waves crashing all around. Some of us will be scared to face this storm, but manage to brace ourselves to do so, while others will feel anxious and may struggle to cope, fearing that one big wave could destroy them. As the storm passes, we focus on our recovery, but this is not always so simple. The experience of such an event may leave some to question their safety, anticipating another storm which will carry them out to sea again. The boat that we use to navigate the waters in life adjusts as we grow and our circumstances change. We might start life as a luxurious cruise liner, while others would compare themselves to a small sailboat or even a simple plank of wood. Each vessel is unique, based on experiences, relationships, and self-identity. To the outside world, a boat can look worn. The boat may have a few leaks or a broken sail, but we may feel happy, content, and safe on board. Another boat may look safe and sturdy, but there are various issues on board or below deck that can't be seen. The water can also be a treacherous place, and some of us may have found ourselves in predatory waters for some time. Even moving to safer, gentler waters, mistrust can prevail, and some of us remain on guard. Our adverse reactions are often rooted in our previous experiences and remain difficult to ignore. After a challenging period, it is helpful to seek safety with a chance to be guided and supported by others and to rest and repair any damage. Without help to dock, we may be deprived of an opportunity to take time to revive our confidence and feel forced to remain in choppy waters, struggling to feel safe and lost without help. Distress flares equip our boats to save us, but they are only useful if we are able to recognise danger, know when to ask for help, and know how to use them. They can also be misused, with constant threats perceived in every situation and in a constant state of high alert. It is important to use our anchor of resilience, which gives us control when things get tough, helps us to stay on course, and learn from our experiences. It is not our fault if we struggle to use our anchors. We have little control over its weight. Our vessels are also equipped with a trauma-informed telescope. This allows us to look through a lens at an individual, their boat, and the water surrounding them, and begin to understand their own specific situation. Through this, we can connect and respond with kindness in a safe and trustworthy way. A collaborative, trauma-informed approach can teach us to recognise that each separate journey is unique. It is important to understand, however, that regardless of experience and adversity, we all have strengths and can go on to successfully navigate the storms that may come our way.
So much, Tegan. I know I've seen the animation many times, and each time I see it, I take something else from it, depending on my mood and where I am in my own experiences. So yeah, hopefully you've all enjoyed seeing the animation and hearing about the kind of concepts around it as well. Does anybody have any comments or questions for us at all? Any reflections?
Oh, so we've got a question from Tamara. How is the animation being used now? That's a really good question. So it can be used by anybody. It's on YouTube. It's available on YouTube in both English and Welsh. And it's been embedded into different training resources, including on the ACE Hub Wales website. But what we're also doing with the animation is creating workbooks, so bespoke workbooks for organisations around the themes of the animation. So, for example, we're working on workbooks at the moment for primary and secondary school, for youth justice, and children's university as well. But we've also had inquiries to make workbooks for HMP Berwyn and different health and wellbeing organisations as well. So if you're interested in the workbooks, they're being piloted next year in 2023. And we're looking at bringing the animation to life even more, really, through the workbooks, through the different themes. So we're going to have yoga demonstrations in there that represent the way that the water moves and the differences in the water movements. These activities will also really help to regulate individuals as well. So we've chosen activities that are help with self-regulation, help with emotional regulation. Also, we're doing activities around relationships and relational connections for individuals. Each workbook will be suited to different age groups. So some of the activities will be for a younger audience, primary school age, whereas for the workbooks for HMP Berwyn, for example, we'll change the activities so that they are more suited for an adult audience.
Thanks, and that actually links perfectly to Llynos's comments here, that it may be good for younger students too, and for those in school. And I think that's the beauty of it, really. I think it's very accessible, you know, for different ages. And Tegan's talked about those workbooks there, and you know, we're thinking very much for the younger, you know, younger children to use kind of yoga movements, shape, you know, making shapes of a boat, you know, bringing it to life in those interactive ways as well. So it's about kind of developing the animation according to the different audiences, really. But you know, hopefully it lends itself well to all those different groups, different demographic groups as well. So, you know, thank you for that feedback. Has anybody else got any questions or comments or anything for us? Okay, well, if you know you'd like to contact us again, you know, we'd be pleased to talk to any of you, really, you know, post this morning's session. If you had any ideas that you come away from the session and you'd like to know more, or you're reflecting on what you've seen, you know, we'd be really pleased to hear from you. But if there's no more kind of comments or questions. Oh, we've got one now. Wow. Have any other universities taken the trauma-informed approach on? So we've recently had a day with Aberystwyth University. So they are next in terms of looking at the pilot. And we had a really interesting time with them, sharing our journey, sharing what we've been doing so far for the past 2 years. The ACE Hub are also working closely with them, and they've invited us to spend a day with them as well, and help them to develop their ideas and learn from our experiences as well. So yeah, Aberystwyth so far. What we're also doing is we are evaluating the work that we're doing, using a methodology called Most Significant Change, which kind of asks key people what has been the most significant change since you've been working on this concept. And we will be developing a research report which can be shared to other people in the sector as well, to help them in their journey. So it's really important that we disseminate that learning as well. We've also been working really closely with further education colleges who've been trailblazers, so with Coleg Cambria and Coleg Gwent as well. And we've been working quite closely with them in terms of developing guidance for policies as well. Oh, so thanks, Tamara. Yeah, we'd be really pleased to work with you in relation to those workbooks and workshops for your learners as well. So I'm sure we'll be able to take that on going forwards. We haven't had any connections with Bangor University at the moment, but obviously we'd be pleased to work closely with them as well. Tegan actually connects with Bangor University in relation to a research hub, don't you, Tegan? And some colleagues there that are doing research on trauma at Bangor.
Yeah, so we have had a couple of meetings around trauma-informed work within youth justice, Flintshire Youth Justice. Yeah, so we've had a few meetings. around that sort of work.
Brilliant. Okay, so thank you all for your engagement and taking the time to come to our session today. We're really pleased to have had this opportunity, and we'd be really pleased to continue those conversations with any of you afterwards. We hope that you found it interesting and helpful in terms of understanding what it means to have that trauma-informed approach. Thank you very much, everybody. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you.